G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man.
All right, this week, as I sort of alluded to in Sorrento, which is Sorrento Part 1 last fortnight, I'm come back there. I'm going to be finishing off our journey to Sorrento in this Part 2. So I'll leave a link in the show notes to Part 1 for those of you who haven't heard it. But here's a quick recap. Sorrento's a seaside town on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria in Australia, about 95 km southwest of Melbourne. And it's now a popular holiday and resort destination. So it's got calm beaches on one side, bay beaches, and then surf beaches on the other. It's got a whole lot of historic limestone buildings. There's restaurants, cafes. You can catch the ferry over to Queenscliff, the other peninsula that makes up the entrance to Port Phillip Bay. And population down there's about 2,000. And the area now known as Sorrento is traditionally Boonwurrung country, and the Boonwurrung people occupied the Mornington Peninsula for tens of thousands of years. And the focus of Part 1 was the Sullivan Bay settlement, which was ultimately a temporary settlement that was started in October 1803. Lieutenant Governor David Collins led the first European settlement there, landing at Sullivan's Bay, which is basically where Sorrento is on Port Phillip. They had 450 people, 300 convicts, then Marines, civil officers, free settlers, and families. So the settlement was created preemptively because the British were afraid of the French establishing a colony there after John Murray's 1802 discovery of Port Phillip. So Lieutenant Collins quickly found the site unsuitable. There was like sandy soil, poor timber, scarce fresh water, and there was a difficult entrance to the bay for a commercial port or defence. So basically after 7 months, he pulled the pin on it. He got permission from, from memory it was Governor King or something up in New South Wales, and then the settlement was moved in two parties down to Van Diemen's Land, which is now called now called Tasmania. So that was reinforcing the settlement at the Derwent River, which later became Hobart. About 30 people died at the site and 21 convicts escaped during the occupation. And it's one of those convict escapes that caught my eye enough that I thought, I want to make this a part 2 to share with mates of the podcast. So let's go back to the area that's now Sorrento, was Sullivan Bay back then, and follow the adventures of a bloke called William Buckley. So he was a bit of his background. William Buckley was born around 1776, 1780 in Marton, near Cheshire in England, son of a small farmer. He was reared by his maternal grandfather, who provided schooling and apprenticed him as a bricklayer. Buckley joined the Cheshire militia and later the 4th King's Own Regiment of Foot. And he was a big bloke, 6 foot 6 inches, so they made him the pivot man of the company. And in
6'6" back in that day he's basically a giant, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, it's tall enough as it is, but yeah, back then it was.
Back then, holy moly.
Yeah. And then in 1799 he participated in the campaign in the Netherlands under the Duke of York, Grand Old Duke of York, and was wounded in the right hand. But then in 1802 he was convicted at the Sussex Assize on 2nd of August of knowingly receiving a roll of stolen cloth. Now, he claimed he had been asked by a woman to carry the cloth and he didn't know it was stolen. So showing the compassion that they did in those days, they sentenced him to transportation for either life or 14 years, which just... some of the sentences just sound absolutely insane.
It is absurd, but you got to remember they've got to pad out the population for these colonies, right? You can't let the French get their grubby little hands on Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was probably incentive there. So luckily that never happens anymore.
No. Government always tells the truth.
Yeah. Arrived at the Sullivan Bay settlement in Port Phillip, October 1803, aboard HMS Calcutta, as I said, under Lieutenant Governor David Collins. Now, around in 1803, around the 27th of December, during a rainstorm, Buckley escaped with 5 other convicts to avoid relocation to Van Diemen's Land, Tasmania. So they took a kettle, a gun, boots, medical supplies and limited rations. One escapee, Charles Shaw, was shot and captured along with another, and then another bloke, Daniel Allender, later surrendered. So Buckley and 2 mates travelled along the coast of Port Phillip Bay. And just to describe it look, you can look it up on a map, but just for the purpose of this, there's a big bay, and where you think of Melbourne in Australia down in Victoria, it's at the top of the bay, and there's 2... I suppose like 2 sideburns that come under the chin with a little entrance to the bay there, and both of them are peninsulas. So there's the Mornington Peninsula, which is where Buckley escaped from, and then on the other side, all the way around the bay, is the Bellarine Peninsula. So he took off. Where are they? Sorry, just lost my place then. Yep. So they travelled along the coast of Port Phillip Bay, so basically traced it around, went past where present-day Melbourne was, then came down into the You Yangs and then on to Swan Island, which is right down near the entrance to Port Phillip. So they ate like shellfish.
That's a long way to go.
Massive. I'd be pretty impressed with myself if I walked it nowadays.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised at how big a journey it was.
That must have taken weeks, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't short.
That's like a good probably 3 or 4 hour drive today. Like it's a fair long way.
Yeah, probably good. Be close to 3. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
on roads, and these they're just they're making their own way. so yeah, they're hooking the like shellfish and berries and the couple of rations they had, but they were hungry and dehydrated. And then when they got all the way around to the other side, Swan Island, they could see across the bay. They could see the HMS Calcutta, the ship, because they're very close. It's like tiny heads in the entrance to the bay, so they could see right across there. And the two remaining companions who were really struggling with the situation, they said, "Nah, can't hack it anymore. We're going back." So they took off.
Going back?
Yeah, they're going back. Yeah, good, because they just thought this is too hard. This is just doing our head in. They perished.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I get the impression Buckley was the real sort of winner out of this in terms of picking up new skills. So he had the mindset where he said, "Look, I'd rather be free than return and be sent down to Van Diemen's Land." So he chose to continue alone. He did get pretty crook from starvation and exposure, but got down to Aries Inlet, which is just around that area. There was fresh water there was seafood and shelter. So he built a hut near a stream and just foraged along the coast. So eventually he encountered members of the Wadawurrung tribe. They're part of the Kulin Alliance, and their traditional lands included the Bellarine Peninsula and Geelong and surrounding areas. And he first met 3 spear-carrying men at Nuraki, which is Mount Defiance, and they shared some crayfish with him. And later, at a lake or lagoon called Marmot, 2 women and their husbands assisted him after he was found exhausted. But a key factor in his initial acceptance was that he had taken a spear from a burial mound which belonged to a deceased tribal chief named Murrungurk or similar. And the Wadawurrung people believed that Buckley was the reincarnated spirit of this chief returned to life because he had the spear. Yep. So they gave him the name Murrungurk, adopted him into the tribe about a year after his escape. So they did ceremonies of mourning and rejoicing, and he was cared for by the former chief's relatives. So Buckley lived among the Wadawurrung for 32 years, primarily on the Bellarine Peninsula. Yeah, peninsula near the mouth of Brim Creek. It's called Thompson's Creek, now in the Barwon River. So he learned their language, customs, hunting, fishing, including spearing kangaroo and catching fish and eels, cooking methods, bush survival techniques. He'd hunt game with them, kangaroo, wombat, wallabies, gather yam daisies and seafood. He built and helped them build weirs for better fishing yields and preserved food. He was treated with great affection and respect, and eventually became Ngugarungatai, a person of considerable influence whose voice mattered in decisions of war and peace. Because he was a revered spirit, though, he was generally barred from participating in tribal wars, although he saw conflicts. He was given a wife, they believe it was a Buninyong woman called Purin Muranim Talawernin. And
sorry, what was that? I didn't quite catch that name.
It was Purin Muranim Talawernin.
Very good.
I deserve that. And reportedly had a daughter. So he lived mainly near the freshwater sources that had access to a whole lot of food. And the tribe he was with appeared to be healthy, low illness. He shared heaps of stories about England around the campfire. He did go off sometimes and live a little bit more solitarily, but he integrated well overall and pretty much forgot a lot of his English while becoming fluent in the local language. But then in July 1835, at Indented Head down in that region, Buckley approached John Batman's Port Phillip Association Party, led by a bloke called John Wedge. So he basically rocked up out of the bush in kangaroo skins, carrying Aboriginal weapons, long hair and tattoos, including WB, his one. Had almost forgotten English, but quickly relearned it because he had overheard plans by some Aboriginal people who wanted to attack these newcomers. So he wanted to stop some violence happening. So he acted as an intermediary. They identified him as a long-lost convict, and he received a pardon then through Lieutenant Governor George Arthur. Yeah. So he worked as an interpreter for Batman at £50 salary and later as a government interpreter. But he he sort of had a little bit of a cultural divide. He felt caught between the two of them, that he had divided loyalties, didn't really feel like he had the full trust from both sides. And ironically, he eventually left for Hobart in 1837. So he did actually end up in Van Diemen's Land. So down there he married a woman, Julia Eagers. She was a widow with a couple of kids, 2 daughters, and he served as assistant storekeeper at the immigrants' home and a gatekeeper at the female factory, and retired on a small pension, £12 from Tasmania, supplemented by £40 annually from Victoria. Then in 1856, in January, he died down in Tassie. He was about 75 or 76, which I think from general debility, but some accounts note that he may have had a carriage accident. And he was left a legacy as the wild white man. And for those, you might have possibly guessed this, but for those familiar with Aussie slang, his story inspired the phrase Buckley's chance for slim odds. So when you hear that phrase, oh yeah, there's bloody Buckleys of that happening, that's
He's the origin of that.
He's
That's
the origin.
incredible.
Yeah, exactly. And that was when I was doing the thing on Sullivan's Bay last fortnight. They just sort of had a little thing on here. We had Buckley who escaped, and he was the one with a Buckley. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then when I looked into it, I thought, oh no, this got to be a part 2. But yeah, so that's where Buckley's chance comes from. So that's the story of William Buckley, the military man, convict, adopted Aboriginal tribesman, translator, liaison, and storekeeper, whose Australian adventure started on the shores of this week's Two Ticks Town Talk of Sorrento in Victoria.
That's an incredible story. I love this. There's a few of these that we've come across that I wonder, like, if we could ever get like a really high production quality, TV show or movie or something like that made about some of these people, because I feel like we've got so many incredible stories to tell. I just have this image of my mind of this absolute massive man stumbling out of the bush, holding this like old chief's spear. If you were those Aboriginal people, you'd be like, yeah, there's something special about this guy, right? He's basically a giant, right? Like, yeah. I do think it's a little bit of a shame, though, that when he lived with them, how long did you say? 32
years.
32 years.
Yeah.
And at the first chance of getting away from them, he was like, "Oh, thank God, I hate these guys." He left.
I don't think that's fully fair. I think it was he was into it, but it was because he had heard about them. What we don't know is what opportunities was presented before that. But my reading was he had heard the plans to attack the mob that was with Batman, and thought, no, I want to stop the violence. So, I mean, he did leave. You're right on that. I didn't get the impression he was chomping at the bit, because it sounded as though he had a reasonable life and was free. That was one of the things from back there. He sort of thought, well, at least I'm not down in chains in Van Diemen's Land.
Exactly, and then ironically ended up there anyway. I do wonder why. He didn't basically live out the rest of his life with the Aboriginal people, but maybe he felt like he was never fully accepted there or something like that. Yeah. So, look, we don't know. I'm speculating on but the fact is he did leave. He did. Get out of there. So, but wow, what an incredible life. Another one of these incredible life. And I say, Buckley's chance. I say that all the time. I had no idea where it came from. No. And now I know. What an incredible thing. I'm definitely, next time I say that, I'm going to, whoever I say it to, I'm going to go, Do you know where that comes from? Because I do. I've got an incredible story to tell you.
It is a good, and it's a fun story as well.
Yeah.
You know, just that escape and that big trip around there. I mean, that's just such a mammoth trip. And then him just saying, no, I'm not going back. I'm staying here, you know, getting close to death and then getting adopted. And just that, like, if he hadn't have picked up the chief's spear, what would have happened? What would have been different? Would have been sort of like, oh, here's this crazy guy,
here's this giant stumbling around in the bush. Yeah, they probably would have killed him. Probably, like
possibly.
I very much think that things would have gone quite differently for him. You know, in that situation. Look, Netflix, if you're listening, call it Buckley's Chance. Make a film, make a short limited series about it. It would be incredible, and I think it would be amazing to see more of these Australian stories out in the world. And Buckley's Chance is such a good name for it as well. Call it that. What an incredible story. Oh, thank you so much for sharing.